Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. Today I'm going to talk to you about a few different things, beginner, intermediate versus advanced training and so forth, and also a little bit about rep speed. Now, I always get people that want to offer me advice, and some of them are actually coming from a pretty good place. Like they're just friends. Hey, just saying, hey, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, and looking out for your well-being. And then I get some comments that maybe are not coming from that place, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because I already found what works for me and what has worked over a period of 35 years. And I'm continually experimenting here and there and making sure that I'm right, because your body does change and sometimes it needs something different, right? So this is an ever-changing path, this natural bodybuilding path. That's really what I'm trying to say to you. So one thing that is a lot of times misunderstood is guys will be like, oh, you have to do really slow on the eccentric part of the rep. So when you're lowering the weight, you have to do really slow, and then you can power up for the positive. And that is a technique, yes. And is it safer? Yes, it is a bit safer, especially if you're a person that doesn't have the awareness to know when it's not the right time to apply faster reps, right? So there are standard protocols that are applied to beginner people because they don't have the awareness yet to be able to adjust based on certain sensations that they're feeling, right? Some of them don't even know if they're feeling an injury happening or if they're just feeling normal muscle soreness, right? But as you become more advanced, you're going to see that there are exceptions to a lot of the beginner's rules that you have to apply in order to get to the next level. So there are lots of power lifters out there, like they're doing bench presses and you can see they're doing power reps. They're not just doing really slow on the way down. They're actually just trying to increase that explosiveness. And sometimes that does have a certain amount of speed on the lowering of the weight. They're not trying to concentrate on lowering it slowly and eccentrically and extending out that repetition. And a lot of the guys, I've had these guys comment in the comments too. They said when they slow down their reps, they found that they lost strength. Well, that makes sense, right? Because when you're slowing down the repetition, you start to hit more the strength endurance fibers and endurance fibers of the muscle instead of the power fibers, right? So the question is, can you do this safely? How can you access these fast twitch fibers safely? Well, the best way is for you to have your own awareness, right? I mean, if you have eyes to see when you cross the street, you can check both ways and make sure there's no car coming, right? And it's the same way when it comes down to establishing awareness when you're bench pressing or when you're doing any sort of exercise. You can feel the subtle signs of when it's not good to do those explosive reps or faster negatives and so forth. But one thing I have found is that I have to do that. And when I do that, it hits the muscle much better than when I'm just slow all the time. But if I feel like something is a little bit tweaked or something's a little bit injured, then I cannot use that aggressive technique. At that point, I definitely have to do the slower repetitions, right? But again, it's always about what is necessary at the time. And of course, like I've said before, different people will need different things and respond differently. So if you find that you can respond just great to slow reps all the time, then by all means do that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with your training because you're getting that. But I found for myself, if I do super slow reps, not only do I not access the muscle that I want to hit or the particular fiber, but sometimes I don't hit the muscle at all as good as when I do faster reps, right? So it always depends on the exercise and depends on what you're after and what you're trying to do. But there's no doubt that faster reps will access more of the power aspect of the exercise. And when you're doing slower reps, it'll access a larger percentage of the endurance aspect of the exercise. So yeah, I'm gonna do some bench press. I'm gonna do light today, lighter weight. I'm just warming up with one plate here, and then I'll probably go to 2 plates and just play around, just for fun. So yeah, there are intermediate rules, beginner rules, and also advanced rules that you live by. And when you start to become more advanced, you start to realize where the rules apply to you and where they don't. And one example of this was when I was learning how to write novels back in the day. I was doing a lot of that as a hobby. I'd attend some of these workshops and I'd talk to these published or New York Times best-selling authors and stuff. And you take these courses with them and you'd see all of these rules that they would outline of what you should do. And then when you'd read their book, you'd realize that they didn't follow those rules. They were doing something different than what they were telling you. Well, the reason why is because as a blanket statement, it's good to start with foundational rules that are conservative, right? So basically you're in the awareness building stage at that point. You're just starting to learn how to connect to the body. Now it's the same thing with story. There's a certain awareness that you start to, let's just say you start to get the big picture and start to see the repercussions of your words with greater neutrality, right? You're not so attached to your story. Well, it's the same thing with bodybuilding. You start to get less in the brain and more in the body, right? And you start to feel what's really happening instead of projecting what you think is happening. And applying these simple concepts allows you to do it safely until that awareness has time to develop. And then from there, you start to realize where certain rules apply to you and then certain rules don't, or at least when they apply, right? It's kind of like training wheels on a bike. Training wheels on a bike are necessary, right? When we're first learning how to ride a bike, they're definitely necessary. But then at some point, there is a limitation from having those training wheels, and you will not necessarily be able to have the same freedom or the same ability on that bicycle as long as those training wheels are on there. So you could look at certain concepts as training wheels in your journey to developing awareness, and then from there, you outgrow the training wheels. So metaphorically and literally, I guess, sometimes you outgrow them, right? So this is why there's a lot of arguing sometimes going in the comments. It's a lot of people that are in a certain stage of their training, but they haven't yet outgrown the limitations of their awareness, right? They haven't realized that, oh, wait a second, there's these exceptions that apply to these different rules. And this is why Jason seems crazy to me and why he's doing this certain technique, or he's doing a repetition that's too fast, or he's doing that exercise all wrong, right? It's because they have these rules in their head that are firmly ingrained in there, but they haven't realized the limitation of those rules and when and why they might apply or might not apply. So it's pretty deep stuff, honestly. Like those of you that are getting what I'm saying right now, I'm telling you, you must be on another level of awareness even to understand what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, because it takes time, and you have to make a lot of mistakes, and you have to see through the bullshit, and sometimes it takes time to do that. So there's always a time period, right? There's always a certain passage of time that it takes for you to expand this awareness. And by listening to other people's experiences and stuff, you can speed this process up, right? But in the end, the only reason why you listen to other people is so that you open your mind just for a second, and then from there, the awareness it starts to just be honed, right? It starts to become clear. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that these beginner rules, or these people that speak in absolutes. A lot of times they're not wrong when it comes down to speaking to a certain audience, but once that audience matures or grows into the next level, then automatically the teaching has to evolve. So if a teaching can't evolve to cater to the person's individual situation, then it's not a real teaching. It's just a propaganda doctrine machine. You know what I'm saying? Because every teaching has to do with the specific individual situation and timing. Mountain. So a lot of times people ask me in the comments about what type of training program they should be doing, or how should they set up their training program and stuff. Well, that's why I sell workout programs on my website. I mean, if you want to know the general structures of reps and sets and time between sets and that stuff, that's why I have those workout programs there, right? Otherwise, if you want to do a consultation with me, we can sit down and talk. But otherwise, yeah, there's a reason why I have that stuff there. But if you want to steadily progress in natural bodybuilding, you have to have two things happening. And assuming your diet and everything's going on, but in your training, your strength should be going up regardless of how much it's going up or not. Like maybe it's going up or inching up. Like once you get closer to your genetic limit, then yeah, your strength increases become much more marginal. But your strength or your strength endurance should be going up at least a little bit, right? Like something like that should be happening. So what I find a lot of times people will do is that they'll go through periods of time where they discover, oh, my strength's no longer going up, I'm gonna go to light weights and just rep out all the time, and they get obsessed with the pump, right? And they start to look a little bit better, or they start to get some hypertrophic gains from that. And then of course, they throw the baby out with the bathwater and they say, oh, it's nothing, it's just reps, all the time it's just reps. It's like, no, it was the combination of you gaining strength and then repping out with that strength that led you to that extra muscle mass. So once you go through phases of different rep ranges or different types of training programs, it doesn't mean that the programs that came before were wrong. And I guess that's really what I'm getting down to, is that what's working today is built on the foundation of what you did yesterday. So say something is working better for you today, it's not always because the thing you did before was wrong. Sometimes that was a necessary step in order for you to make progress now with this new thing you're doing, So that was kind of the short-sightedness that I had in the early days of my training, is sometimes I would make that presumption that, oh, this is the new thing. And of course I'd hit the wall with that new thing, right? I'd start to get gains, you've probably been there. I started to get results, and then all of a sudden, boom, results would stop, or whatever good feeling or good pumps I was getting all of a sudden went away. And then of course I go back to the previous thing that I used to do, like maybe heavyweight sets, or maybe less sets in my workout and just concentrate on getting some strength. And then I come back to the repping out, and then it would work well again, right? So yeah, you are honing in your observation skills. You're starting to perfect your ability to observe neutrally. And yeah, you have to break a lot of your attachments along the way. That's the funny thing, right? You have to, sometimes you're attached to a certain technique or a certain way of doing things, and then the body says, nope, I don't want you to do that anymore. And then you got to go to the next thing, right? So that's kind of the beautiful thing about this path, is that there's no room for emotional attachment, right? Once you become advanced, you start to say, okay, what's working, right? And that's it, Now, the other thing you're going to notice is that there's so many variables to watch out for when you're training, right? So you're also going to notice certain things just by accident, right? So for instance, yesterday I had quite a bit of protein, right? I had steak, and I had chicken, and I had a little bit of fats and stuff, but I didn't have much carbs. I think I had a piece of bread for carbs the whole day. And you'll notice that sometimes the body will tell you through your performance of what type of eating you should be doing. And today I can feel that I don't have the same reps in the tank for bench, so I know that I might be deficient in a bit of glycogen, right? So I might have benefited from having a little bit more carbohydrates, maybe a little bit of pasta or a little bit of rice or something like that, right? So the body's teaching you how to adjust these macros based on your performance. So sometimes it's your diet that you got to look at, not just your training, right? And yeah, we're always experimenting, right? So, as a general rule for diet though, I just make protein as the center of my universe, and then that's the foundation I build upon. That's the thing that doesn't really change, right? About a gram per pound of body weight of protein. And then from there, I decide whether I'm going to have a little bit more fats for energy or more carbs. And if I have more carbs in a day, then I'll try to lower the fat. If I have more fat, then I'll lower the carbs. That's pretty much how it works. In the end, what I have to say is don't overcomplicate your training, right? If something's injuring you and you're aware enough to know, like, hey, I did this and I tweaked that, and then at least adjust what you're doing. Maybe adjust the exercise or do a different exercise or whatever. But don't get too obsessed with getting it perfect, because honestly, whether you're doing a 3-day split, a 2-day split, or a whole body workout, I mean, they're all going to give you benefits. And yeah, I mean, the body will show you in time what is appropriate to you. It's not necessarily about having the perfect program right from the get-go, because you're going to get 90% of your gains from any program, and then from there, you're going to hone it in, right? It's kind of like writing a great novel or making a great song, right? A lot of times the genius is in the edits. But if you get obsessed with having the perfect song right from the get-go, you don't even play one musical note, right? It's the same thing. It's just do, experience, and observe. Do, experience, and observe, and continue this process. And as you do this, you'll naturally evolve and naturally find your way. Mountain. So yeah, I hope this video helps you out in your training. Thanks for watching and tuning in to what I have to say as I'm doing a couple sets of bench press. And yeah, if you need to get hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com. And thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.